Have you ever wondered why people can do this? I mean, I can do this, and this, and this, without too much of a difficulty. If you want to find out how, then this is the video for you. Today in this video, I'm going to share with you some of the exercise that you can do to help improve the flexibility of your squat. Let's go! Hi everyone, Happy New Year. I hope you guys have a good Christmas and New Year break. I am Melanie the Physio, also the co-founder of Capital Physiotherapy here in Australia. Everybody can improve their squat technique, but I have a video up here to share with you why some people have more difficulty doing deep squats than others and how deep squats are really not meant for everybody. So if you are interested, please make sure you click the link up there to watch that video as well. To be able to do a deep squat, not only do you need strength and control, but you also need a lot of flexibility coming from your hip, your ankle, and your knee, and also your lower back. Today in this video, we are talking mainly about flexibility and how to improve your flexibility to improve your squat range. Now we're gonna break it up joint by doing testing to see whether your joint, that particular joint, is actually stiff. And then if it is, then there's certain exercise following those testing to actually improve the range of those joints as well. Not only that, I'll also give you some tips and strategy on how to modify your squat so that you can squat a little bit deeper without changing too much of your flexibility or range or whatsoever. To start off with, let's start with the hip component. Now, in order to find out whether your hip is restricted, you can do this easy test, which is called knee to chest, and see whether your hip is actually flexible enough to do a straight parallel deep squat. Now, if you do these hip to chest testing and realize that you have a pinching sensation coming at the front of your hip, you can either be having a tight hip flexor, which, watch this video up here somewhere, and it would teach you how to improve your hip flexor range. Or it might just be your hip joint is pinching on each other and you just don't have enough range to do a deep squat because your hip joint itself is limiting. Now, when there is a physical block, such as your hip joint is just bone on bone touching and jamming each other, there's not much you can do to try to improve that unless you go through surgically, which no surgeon would do if you just go in and say you want to do deep squat, hence you want to have a hip surgery. Neither is it smart choice to do either. But we can modify your squat technique so it opens up your hip joint a little bit better by turning your hip outwards a little bit, and that naturally, because of our human anatomy, open up our hip joint a little bit, and that you will find in turn will be able to help you squat a little bit lower than what you can right now if you just put your feet out parallel. Now, if it is a tightness problem from your surrounding hip muscles, then these are some of the exercises I want you to try to see whether you can then improve your hip range, which then in turn will improve your squat. The first exercise is the hip flexor stretch. So I want you to come down into a kneeling position, making sure that your hip is directly above your knee and you're not leaning too far forward and you're not arching your back too much. A lot of people do this stretch wrong by arching their back too much. Because your hip flexor attached to your spine, to stretch this muscle, you need to make sure that your spine stays still. The moment you arch your back, you're not stretching these muscles anymore. Making sure that your lower back is nice and flat, and all I need you to do, instead of leaning forward, I just need you to tuck your hip forward, almost like pushing your tailbone up towards the front a little bit. And by engaging your core and switching on your core, bum muscles, you should feel then your hip flexor starts to stretch at the front of your thigh. Hold this stretch for a good 1 minute or so and repeat this repetition. It's been a while since I do a YouTube video. Hold that stretch for about 1 minute and repeat it for about 2 to 3 repetitions, and do that every time after or even like half an hour before you want to do squats exercise. Now, the next exercise is what we call the happy baby pose. Now, this is actually a yoga pose, and it actually helps improve your hip range if you practiced it, and it actually helps open up your hip. So lying down on the floor, bending your thigh up towards your chest as far as you can, opening up your hip into that external rotation position that I was talking about to help open up that hip, and then grab your big toes with your finger and try to rock side to side to see if you can open up the hip a little bit more. Again, practice this and stay in this position for about 30 seconds to a minute and repeat it for about 2 to 3 repetitions. And if you practice this enough, it should then open up your hips a little bit more, which gives you a lot more range to then help you squat a little bit deeper. Next up is the knee component. So to be able to do a deep squat, you also need full knee range of motion. That means your knee should be able to come all the way up and bend it so that your heel is almost touching your bum, that kind of range. If you bend your knees and you feel like you can't sort of bring your heel closer to your bum, or if you're kneeling on the floor and it's really uncomfortable for your knee, then maybe your knee doesn't have enough range to be able to do deep squat. This component though is what I see rarely the case with people who can't do squat, because most people can bend their knee no problem. But if knee range is really your issue, then the kneeling stretch is what you need to do to practice your knee range. So kneel on your knee and make sure that to try to aim for your heel touching your bum, and just hold that there for a couple of minutes. Most of the time, if knee range is an issue, I get my client to actually sit in this position while they're watching TV for a good 5 minutes or so on a daily basis, and slowly but surely you'll find that your knee range will slowly start to improve. A lot of people though, like I said, when they're doing squat, knee is actually not the limiting factor. It's most likely the hip and the ankle that's causing most of the issues. Now, if you squat and you see that your knee is collapsing inwards, that is not a knee problem. That is a hip control problem, that your hip doesn't have enough strength to turn your hip outwards. In this channel, we have a whole playlist delegated to improving squat, so I highly recommend you check them out. Even though the title might not suit, I guarantee that there will be exercise in those videos that's gonna help you with your squat right now. Now, when you're doing a deep squat, you would definitely need the ankle range to be able to do it properly. You need to be able to squat and be pressing on your heel rather than on your toes to be able to go far and deep and maintain being stable on your feet. So to test out whether your ankle does have the range, we're going to do what we call a soleus stretch test, and that is, a simplified term, is the knee to wall test. So come onto the wall, making sure that your knee is bent, and you want to make sure that your knee is touching the wall at all time, and you're going to slide your heels or slide your toe away from the floor as far as you can until the point that your heel is slightly lifting off. That's basically your limit. You need to make sure that your ankle have at least good 20 degrees of flexibility in order for you to then have enough flexibility to do deep squat. If you find that your ankle does not have that range, then you probably is lacking at the ankle component, which is stopping you from squatting deeper. Now, to improve the flexibility of your ankle, there's a few exercises that you can do to help improve that. The first one is the soleus stretch, which is exactly as the test. So you just need to put your knee against the wall and then slide your leg as far back as possible until you feel that there's a stretch at the back of your leg muscles. Hold that position for about a minute. After a minute, see if you can slide it a little bit further and hold it for another minute. Repeat this exercise as much as you can throughout the day, and soon enough you should start seeing some improvement in your ankle mobility. The next exercise is what we call the kneeling ankle stretch. So come into a kneeling position, and what I want you to do is to make sure that your whole foot is touching the floor, that your heel is not lifting off away from the floor. And all I want you to do is use your body and lean against your thigh and push your body weight forward to stretch that muscles at the back of your leg. Hold that there for a good minute or so. Repeat that for about 2 to 3 repetitions, and again, do this as often as you can, and slowly but surely you're gonna start seeing some improvement in your ankle range. As I'm here editing the video, I realized I missed out something that's quite important, so I'm just gonna put this in. If you realize that the ankle mobility is restricting you from squatting lower, what you can do to modify your squat is to put plates underneath your ankle, and that would in turn eliminate the needs to have a flexible ankle to go lower. Now, I'll bet the squat will then be a little bit more quads dominant instead of glute dominant. That means you're going to use the front of your thigh a little bit more rather than your bum muscles. That is still, there's no wrong or right way to do squats. Like whether it's quads dominant or glutes dominant is still the same. It's still a leg workout. So there's nothing wrong with it, and you certainly can do that to then help you go a little bit deeper if going deeper is your main goal for squatting. Now the next component you need to have, believe it or not, is actually back flexibility. So we're gonna look at your back component now. Now, these days, a lot of people work in front of the computer a lot, or work from home a lot, or their day-to-day activity just involve a lot of forward leaning. Hence, they lose the extension range, which means the arching back range. And when you're doing squat, you have to keep your body upright. So in order for you to feel that you're still within the line of gravity, you have to be able to arch your back slightly back to maintain yourself in that center of gravity line. If you lean too far forward, that's when you lose balance. If you lean too far back because your back doesn't have the flexibility, then you fall backwards. It's a fine balance and control in between those two, and unless you have good flexibility in your spine, you won't be able to control those subtle movements properly to be able to do a good quality squat. Now, to find out that if your back is actually stiff and stopping you from doing some good quality squat, the first thing we need to test is the flexibility of your spine. So the first test is to see whether you have enough thoracic extension, that means mid-back extension. Most of the time, I'll do the leaning forward wall test. And in this position, it's almost like you're 90 degrees from the wall to the floor. And I will get my clients to then move each section of their spine. So I'll get them to push the chest down, and I'll have a look whether I can see a nice arch happening at the mid-back. And now I'll get them to curve up again and see whether they can do that. And then also I'll test the lower back range. Then at this point, I'll get them to just tilt their pelvis forward and tilt their pelvis backwards. Pelvis is basically your hip joint there. And see whether the lower back can then move from arching to curving to arching again, to see whether they actually have control over those joints in the spine or not. If you find a lot of difficulty doing these movements isolatingly, you probably have a stiff spine, and therefore it affects the quality of your squat technique. So in order to improve the flexibility and the control of your spine, then these are the following exercises you need to do. First one is thoracic extension on a chair. So you need to sit on a chair and put your hands behind your head and make sure you support your head and your neck. And all I want you to do is open up your chest and then arch your mid-back away from the chair backwards, creating like a rainbow sort of arched on your mid-back. Hold that there for a good 20 to 30 seconds, and see whether you can then twist to one side a little bit and then twist to the other side a little bit. Again, repeat this process or this set of movement for about 3 to 4 repetitions and try to do that on a regular basis while you're working, and that would significantly improve the mobility of your spine. Now the next spine stretch is the downward dog. I know you might think downward dog is not a stretch for spine, but I use downward dog a lot of the time to actually improve my spine mobility and to learn how to isolate my different segment of my spine and help practice moving them in a segmental movement. Segmental movement means that you're isolating the movement. So you're moving your mid back but not your lower back, and you're moving your lower back but not your mid back. So those controls are very important in deep squat. So come into a kneeling position and then push your hip up towards the ceiling and then straightening your arms as you do that. Try to drop your shoulder blade back and down, and you should feel the stretch at the back of your leg at this point. Yeah, I want you to bring your chest closer towards your hip and see if you can arch that mid back towards yourself, and then relax that again. Do that a couple of times for about 5 repetitions or so, and then we swap to movement of your lower back. So now, instead of moving your chest towards your thigh, I want you to tilt your tailbone sort of up towards the ceiling, making a slight arch in your lower back, like an S shape in your lower back, and then curl them in again, so you're making like a C shape on your lower back. Again, practice this repetition for about 5 to 10 repetitions and do it alternatively. So you do the mid back, then you do the lower back, then you do the mid back again, then you do the lower back again. And you can repeat this as many times as you want while you're practicing this. There is so many things that I forgot in this video. I have not been in the game of YouTube for a while. Now, for the long femur group of people, you know who I'm talking about. People who have really, really long legs, which make deep squat really difficult for them. One tip I have for you is to make sure that you have a weight in front of you while you're squatting. So if you have a weight in front of you, it helps counterbalance. Because the length of your thigh is so long, it push your whole body weight behind the center of gravity line way too far back. So by adding a weight in front of your chest, it helps counterbalance the difference a little bit, which then would actually significantly help you to squat a little bit lower. But I get you. As in, I don't get you because I'm so short, but I understand how hard it is for you to do deep squat. So keep at it. Good luck. I hope that this video helps you understand which part of your body is actually limiting you from doing a better squat, and there's definitely ways that an exercise that you can do right now to help improve that. I upload video here on a weekly basis on health and fitness related topic as well as injury rehab topic. Once again, I'm Melanie and I will see you in the next video. Until then, stay safe, happy and healthy. Good luck with your squat. See ya!